Friends, Gidyantiv everyone, Gidyantiv. Gidyantiv, Gidyantiv. So beautiful to be with all of you on the second Seder. And I'm of the opinion, as much as to the chagrin of my in-laws and thinking others, that it's great that we have two Seders. Tovim hashnayim min ha'echad. It's good to have two, because from one comes two. Before the bet of Bereshit there was Aleph, but then we begin the world with two. And it's appropriate that when we begin the world of liberation, we also have two. And so here we are tonight in the bet, in the second iteration of liberation. The second iteration of liberation. And friends, you know that
alliteration.
In the iteration of liberation, you know, it's not the case that we walk into this Seder without a deep, visceral sense of what it is to be needing freedom on every level, on the physical, on the emotional, on the spiritual, on the global, on the existential, and the political levels. We are beginning the conversation tonight, or continuing the conversation, but it's the conversation of freedom that we've been having our whole lives, and also in this past year for sure, during the pandemic. And so we always begin with a song, because there were 15 steps in the Beit HaMikdash, and King David, or whoever wrote the Psalms, wrote one psalm for each of those steps, Shir HaMalos, a song of how we lift ourselves up, of how we elevate, how we go higher. And there are 15 steps in our Seder. And so tonight we'll be singing for each step, and we'll be reflecting together, and we'll have moments that are spanning the spectra of emotional and other experiences. And we're excited that you're with us. Some of you are here for the first time potentially. And if you are, we welcome you. And if you're kind of a standard bearer of the holistic Seder, we've been having it for how many years? Maybe, I don't know, 9 years, 10 years. We started our holistic Seder at the JCC of Manhattan. And every year we were having it there. And last year, of course, we were in our second iteration of the COVID Seder. So we begin with these 15 steps. We begin with these Sidarim, these moments of connection, from Kadesh to Nirtzah, these 15 steps of connection. And, you know, the Rebbe's taught, Reb Tzadok HaKohen of Lublin and other great Hasidic Rebbe's taught that before there was a 12-step program, there was a 15-step program. And the 15-step program was beginning with Kadesh and going all the way until Nirtzah. And that before each and every one of these steps and these stages, we'll have a moment to reflect on what it might mean on each of the levels, right, in Kabbalah, each of the 4 levels and each of the dimensions of being. But certainly on a night like tonight, as Chazan Shachter was singing, Karev Yom, we hope for, to bring close some illumination, some wisdom, and some insight through our time here together tonight. But Aflacha Laila, that meaning that even in the night, which is when the Seders take place, it's possible for us together to collectively shine a light on liberation and on freedom. So these 15 steps, Kadesh, Urchatz, Karpas, Yachatz.
Kadesh, Urchatz, Karpas, Yachatz, Maggid, matzah, maror korech, shulchan orech, tafun barech, halel nirtzah. Hey ya, 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 hey ya.
So this Kadesh, this image that you'll see in front of you is so beautiful. And these cups that go around and around in a circle. This beautiful mandala of the first of the 15 steps, which of course is Kiddush, which represents the sanctification over the wine. I remember as a young child that my father, when he should live and be well, whenever he would come home and from shul on Pesach night, he would kind of wryly smile and say, right, he would say in a very formal way, the Seder begins with the sanctification of the wine. And he said it so funny, and we would laugh. And it was only later on that I started to ask myself, right, in the notion that these 15 steps, these 15 moments of reflection and questions are psycho-spiritual signposts. What could be the significance of beginning a rite, a liberation festival, with making Kiddush, with lifting up a cup of wine and sanctifying the day? And to sanctify it, of course, is to use the word Kadosh, Kedusha, Kiddush, Kadesh, Kadesh, Kadesh. The word to make holy, to make sacred. There's a profound understanding that the first holy thing, as it were, in the Bible, and therefore in the kind of the hierarchy of Jewish values, is Shabbat, Vayikadesh oto, that Shabbat time becomes sanctified. And the first mitzvah, the first commandment given to the Jewish people as a nation was given when they were still slaves. Chapter 12 of the book of Exodus begins, HaChodesh hazeh lachem, this month will be for you, first of all months, which in the rabbinic world becomes called the ability to make the moon, to make the moon. Kiddush, it's the l'chadesh hayarech, like the miracle of participation in making time holy. And so I think that the Rebbe, as I saw somewhere, said that this is the beginning of our journey towards freedom. Our journey towards freedom is that we affirm, no matter how far we've fallen, as Brian Stevenson said, that we are much, much greater than even our worst moment. No matter how far we've fallen, no matter how deep the Egypt is, no matter how confused the state is, the first step is saying, I have power. I have power to lift up this cup and to make this moment holy. I have the power, lekadesh, to say this moment will be holy. And God says in our tradition, oh, really? Okay, great. You want this moment to be holy? Sounds good to me. This is your power, you human beings. You have the power to bring holiness into the world. It's not just something, as it were, that comes from above, that it comes from below. In this awakening, as it were, from below, awakening of our own agency and our own power, our own privilege, our own responsibility, and our own voice to speak our story. And so we fill up the first of the 4 cups of wine or grape juice or whatever it is that you're using, the beverage of choice. And we say that this commandment was given to our Israelite ancestors when they were still slaves, to say to them, when you were a slave, your time belonged to someone else. If you want to be free, own your own time. Make your mark. Make your voice heard. So this kos of Sarah, the cup of Sarah, and the cup of Kiddush, if you have one, and you're able to rise, we're going to make Kiddush together and start our journey together. And maybe even since we're not audible to one another, maybe if you're alone or if you're with somebody, you can just say out loud, I have the power to make the world holy. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Asher bachabanu ime kolam, v'romanu ime kol hashon, v'kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'atiten lanu Adonai b'yahava, moadim l'simecha, chagim uzmanim l'sason.
את יום חג המצות הזה, זמן חירותנו מקרא קודש, זכר ליציאת מצרים. כי בנו בחרת ואותנו קידשת עם כל העמים, ומועדי קודשך בשמחה ובששון הנחלתנו. ברוך אתה אדוני, מקדש ישראל, Hazmanim.
Amen.
Oh, mine. Kadesh, Urchatz.
This beautiful second step, represented by this mandala, from our very own Rabbi Kolaress's daughter, Shira Kolaress. Isn't this beautiful, everyone? Take a look at this. It's magnificent. This step in the 15-step process is known as Urchatz, which means to wash your hands. And traditionally, we would wash our hands here, but without a blessing, and the lack of a blessing would prompt the children to say, "No, how come you're washing your hands? We always wash our hands with a blessing. Why would you not make a blessing?" And that's the point of the night, is to do these things that have people saying, something's different here. Now, it goes without saying, after a year of COVID, that the significance of our hands is profound, isn't it? It's significant, that which we can't touch, and that which we are only now beginning to touch again. It's so significant, that film, as it were, where the largest organ in the body, the skin, and the outside world, as it were, come into contact, and the powerful representation of our hands. One of the meanings that I've often given, traditional meaning, like I heard it at some point, I don't remember where, was that we actually wash our hands at this moment in our spiritual journey, like the first step of the 12 steps, to say, my hands, which mean human agency. As much as we said in the first step, we can do it, in the second step we say, we need help. We need help, right? And at the same time, we also say that when we hold our hands like Shira is so beautifully depicted here, Diane, you should be feeling unbelievable. This posture of the hands, right? This posture. There was once a story that I heard about a great Kabbalist who would only take a few students at a time, and there was a bit of a Kabbalistically enthused young man that came to study. He wanted to learn Kabbalah, and he came to this great teacher in Jerusalem. And as he entered into the room, there were students around, and he was quite nervous. And the Kabbalist, this great mystic, he held out an apple. And this very enthusiastic young man who wanted to study with this mystic ran over, and all the students that were surrounding the mystic, they said, "No, no, 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 no." So he got scared, he walked back. And then the Kabbalist, the teacher, reached out the apple again. And he ran forward to grab it, and all the students said, "No, no, 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 no." So he was very confused. And so he turned to one of the students, and the student looked at him very lovingly, and he softened his eyes, and he looked at me and said, "He's holding out the apple, so can you receive it?" And at this stage here, we say to ourselves, we say we want to be free. We say we want to be free, but can we invoke that presence in ourselves and say, "I'm willing to be free"? If that gift of freedom, whatever it might be, would come to me, that I would be able to honor it, recognize it, and receive it. That's number one. And number two, on a simpler level, the power of these hands, the beauty of these hands, and also the danger, as it were, that they have been imbued with this year. Thank goodness for Purell, and thank goodness for all of those different ways that we can wash our hands and we can air wash them. But maybe you could show your hands to one another now. Maybe instead of opening up the screen to see faces, we might open up the screen to show each other hands. Put a hand in someone's face, as it were. Show them your hands. Yeah? These hands, look at them. Some of them in chamsas, some of them as hearts. Some of them are like reaching side to side, above and beyond. And these hands, and reach through, reach through. And maybe really crazy, maybe take a moment and just think of someone's hand that you wish you could be holding right now. Somebody's hand that you wish you could be holding. Through time and space also, it doesn't have to be right now in this space. Somebody say, come, it's a COVID Zoom Seder. I wish you were here with me. And we could hold hands together. So as we lift up our hands and we show our hands to one another, they're safe. And we wash them off and say, no, we're not ready to make a blessing yet on it because we have to tell the story. When we get to the end of the story, we'll make a blessing on how grace was in our life, yeah? But now we just say, we're human. We're human with one another. And these hands, And when hands come together, the Kabbalists say, a hand is a yad, it's 14. Two hands together, yad is 28. Koach, we have strength when we interlock our hands together. So a bracha for each and every one of us. A bracha for each and every one of us. That as we begin this story, that we reflect also throughout the year on all of the ways, on all of the surfaces, and all manner of ways that we were protected and our hands were protected and those who protected us, right? We had communal Purell, communal, right? People who went around making sure that we could stay where we were. And so all of this is a blessing. And we say to you, source of life, may the work of our hands, konana aleinu u'ma'aseh yadeinu konana, may our hands be strengthened.
Kadesh, Urchatz, Karpas.
So friends, Karpas. What did you guys used to eat for Karpas, Chazan Shechter? What did you eat in your house for Karpas?
We actually, bizarrely enough, we ate potatoes because we needed to eat potatoes so that we wouldn't starve because our seders were so long.
Right, me too. And also because we were Irish. I'm just kidding. I don't know where that came.
See all this green? I'm wearing green in honor of Karpas.
How beautiful is this mandala? Lassie, don't you love this mandala?
It's our very own Rebecca Feldman's mother, who is a professional mandala maker. And I literally she just mentioned it a few days ago. And I said, does she have anything green? And she sent me 4 green ones. And she said her mother was inspired to make one particularly for our Seder. So this was made for this Seder by Rebecca Feldman's mother, Mary Feldman.
And Rebecca Feldman, for those who don't know, is one of our program coordinators and also moderator. She's a wonderful human being. It's such a beautiful, so much in it. It's good just take time looking at it. But Karpas, everybody, Karpas is this great moment. So we've said Kiddush. We can make the world holy. We also threw up our hands and said, you know what? Thank you, God, for grace and these beautiful hands. It's like, we're like, what we can do, what we can't do. And then we come to Karpas, which is this ritual where we'll take something that grows in the earth and we're going to dip it into salt water. And the salt water, of course, represents the tears and the weeping and the sadness of slavery, 400 years of slavery. And into those waters of bitterness, those waters of salt, we also have, of course, all of the weeping. In every place where there is suffering, this is not the maror necessarily the bitterness, but it represents grief, the tears that weren't shed until the first family stood by the Lincoln Memorial and acknowledged all the loss of the years, so many tears we were holding, and so many tears that were, as it were, being honored tonight. And it's the weeping and the power also of those tears. And as it were, we're dipping vitality into those tears. We're saying they're not two. That in the ancient alchemy of how lead becomes gold, there is a negretto, there is a blackening, there is a deterioration, as it were. The seed must rot, as it were, in the soil, and then it is reborn. And so we're mixing those two. And we'd like to invite you to participate with us, all 100, and now can't even see, 133 of you. There's something called Mentimeter, which we've used on the high holidays and at times before. And we'd like to invite you, you'll see in the chat area, is it still going, the Mentimeter? This is for you to take your time now to either go to the chat and click on the chat and then write in what is it you are weeping for and what you are rejoicing in. Or one can go to their website and use the code that is on the page in front of you. We'll take our time. But we would like to make our own mandala of your words. What are you weeping for? And what are you rejoicing in? Such a beautiful, beautiful mandala. So many tears and so much in this simple ritual of dipping a piece of the everlasting testimony of of nature that there is, even in the midst of great grief and great sorrow, there is great possibility. In my family, we had parsley and potatoes and celery and carrots. So into this bowl full of all of your tears and also your weeping and your warriorship, as Chazan Shechter put that beautiful, beautiful poem from Adrienne Rich to her music and her heart. Let's make a brucha, no? Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. There's another slide for this if you'd like. Borei peri ha'adamah. Blessed is the source who brings forth from the humus, from the earth, in its humility, life-giving properties, sustenance. May all of us know rebirth. Amen.
Amen. Kadesh, Urchatz, Karpas, Yachatz.
Wow, what are we going to say about this? Everything? This is the fourth moment. Oh, man. No, Kadesh, we have agency. We can bring holy. Urchatz, we need help. Karpas, acknowledging grief and also the possibility of rebirth. And now, this moment where we will break a matzah. We'll break a matzah. And it's not a Broadway term like good luck, go, break a matzah. It's a pretty wild moment in the Seder because it begins the way that a Jewish wedding ceremony ends, which is with something broken. You take something valuable, matzah is pretty valuable, and we're going to break it not in half. We're going to break it so that one smaller piece remains on the table and one larger piece, 2/3 of it, no one ever breaks it perfectly. And if you do, that's a miracle. It's already like you have to train a lot to do that. But, we break it. And in this ritual, there's a profound moment of insight. This breaking of the matzah is a recognition. First and foremost, no matter how much we're going to tell, the majority of what needs to be told will still remain hidden for some very profound reason. We only know what we know. And the majority of life is mostly the invisible world. And what is seen is only one small piece of it. And that the search for that which is hidden is a lifelong quest. We're going to enjoin the children, of course, in most families, not all. Children are the ones who look for the things that are hidden most deeply, and Chazan Shechter will say something about this, but children are a powerful tool in being able to know what it is that we have forgotten. Another profound meaning of this moment of Yachatz, of course, is that most of us can't begin to tell the story of suffering until something has hit rock bottom. Sometimes we can't even begin to find the words until the break is so immense. We tried to do away with a little crack here, a little crack there. Maybe if we just patch it up, maybe if we just go on, maybe we just shove it under the carpet. But when a break happens, and it's a real break, it sends us on a quest to find out what it is that we need to say to be freed, and what we need to hear so that others might be freed. Another profound insight that the teachers have told us about this moment is that traditionally, as you can see on the screen in front of you, there's a round matzah. There are square matzahs too. It's just as good. But this teaching comes from the tradition where round matzah was used more prevalently. And this teacher, the Chabad Rebbe, said, this teaches us that the circles of inevitability in our lives, the things that are looped upon loop, upon loop, upon loop, like a repetition compulsion, the things that we can't get out of, that this teaches us to begin telling the story of slavery again by saying we can break the cycle. We can break this matzah. And finally, before I give it over to you, Chazan Shechter, the three matzahs are said to represent in our tradition the three quote-unquote groupings of Israelites in the desert, the priests, the Levites, and the Yisrael, the common folk. And in that system, the middle matzah is from the tribe of Levi, of Levi. And the breaking of the Levi matzah, the middle of the three matzahs, is in some way to say that the Levites, from which, of course, Moses came, the tribe of Levi were known to be singers in the temple. And in some way to break this matzah is to acknowledge that there's a broken song that we're listening deeply to tonight. A song whose notes, right, are not perfection, not Beethoven, and not any other composition of transcendent perfection, but of broken perfection. And as the great Leonard Cohen said, there's a crack in everything. That's how the Levi, the light, gets in. Chazan Shechter.
I think this is also a moment where we invite the kids to hide half of the matzah, the larger part of the afikomen. And it's a very playful moment, and it's a very childlike moment. It's a moment where we're really like tapping into the playful nature of our youth. And so when I think about Yachatz, when I think of this step, I think about the parts of us as children that were so magical and were so free and were so open to the universe, and something happened to that part of us. And so I feel like this step for me is I'm trying to uncover the part of myself that as a child got broken, something got broken. And in order to really grow up, I need to reintegrate that part of myself from childhood that got stunted. Of course, that brokenness continued the trajectory of my life and it became who I am. But then there's also another stage of who I become when I reintegrate some of those things that I think are the most beautiful parts of the child that got a little squashed. So that's kavanah.
Seemed that life was so magical, wonderful. And then he showed me the way, right? Showed me how to hide matzah well. Ay, 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 ay. Okay. So the per eternus, this is the eternal child, friends. This is the one, the children are the one who we keep them up because they, as Chazan Shechter said, we're all looking for what is missing, right? And so there's this longing for integration. So let's take a middle matzah. It's hard to be a middle matzah. Middle matzah.
And as we tap into our youth, he's going to cut the matzah and I'm going to blow some bubbles.
No, I think you should do the karate chop.
We ran out of matzah.
Hiya.
Hiya.
Yachatz. Oh, look at that. Woo! First time ever. There you go.
Amazing.
All my kids are sleeping.
I think we can have a chat. Like, this is an interesting chat. In some families, it's the kid who hides the matzah. And in some families, it's the parents who hide the matzah. Either way, it's the kid who gets the present. But for some reason...
It's good to make that clear. I think that's true. But we can give ourselves presents. That's the beauty of this, right? You can certainly give yourself a present. That matzah, people are going to be looking for that matzah. I'll tell you. That's what every single tradition. Isn't it amazing? At the heart of the liberation story, there's a story of seeking, of finding. And maybe it begins with Moshe. Maybe Moshe's the broken Levi. He was broken when he was living a lie in Pharaoh's house. And in that way, maybe he left himself out of this story because we're still looking for him as he was looking for him. And all of those who are left out of the story and have to go looking for themselves. So on we go to Yachatz, to Maggid.
Kadesh, Urchatz, Yachatz, Karpas, Yachatz, Maggid.
So the Maggid mandala is a beautiful Maggid mandala, as you'll see in a second. This mandala is brought to you by Jill Minkoff. Beautiful mandala, which is slide number 16, Eliza. So there you go. Okay, and here it is, all the way from Costa Rica. All the way from Costa Rica. See, it takes a long time, but we're so thankful. My Aries sister. Look at that beautiful mandala. This is the Maggid moment. This Maggid moment. Here it is, friends. This is the heart of the Seder. We're going to be looking for a story. And in so many ways, the story can't start until we break this bread, this that we were just looking to. We split it. And it also begins with a recognition that in order to really tell our stories, we have to invite other people in to tell the story too, right? To tell a liberation story about one people is really to miss the mark. We tell the story, and to show our true liberation, we open our doors, right? We say, anyone who is hungry, anyone who is needy, right? Please come and join us. This halach ma'anya, right? Is that this remarkable thing, that my wife, Ariel, worked for many years in youth homelessness, and she had the experience of spending a couple of nights on the streets of New York, homeless. And what was the most remarkable thing was that the people who walked by, were often people who said, "Oh, I was there too," or "I know what it feels like." And so we begin a story by saying, liberation is a human story. So we need other human beings to be with us, to talk about how we help one another, how we open one another, how we listen to one another, because a story that is told without the inclusion of as many people as possible to some degree is not as good a story. And stories are, the Torah wants us to know that a people is only as strong as its story. And when we forget our stories, when we don't listen to other stories, that we cut ourselves off from a deep reservoir of our humanity. And so at this moment of Maggid, as we begin the story of the particular story of Pesach, we also have a very personal, meaning communal story about how we're opening up Romemu's actual food, actual center to receive people and to bring food to them. Daikin Nelson, where are you, Daikin? Can you hear us, Daikin? Okay, come in. Daikin?
Yes.
Hi.
I'm pinned.
Oh, there you are. It's so wonderful to have you with us. We're in this portion of the Seder, we say these words in Aramaic, and of course, the usage of the Aramaic was, of course, the lingua franca of the Jews of the time. It was as if to say, we interrupt this scheduled Hebrew program to talk to everyone, make sure that everybody understands this. And they said, "Kol dichvin yetei v'yechol." Everyone who can come come and partake. And so just would love it if you'd share with people what you're doing at the Romemu Center with Mandala Cafe. And also tell them what it feels like for you to feed people and how that connects to freedom and liberation for you. Is that okay?
Sure. I started a nonprofit 5 years ago, and shortly after that, we've been feeding people every Wednesday in Harlem. And I've been coming to Romemu for 8.5 years now, and been chatting with Rabbi David about doing something along the lines of providing something for the neighborhood. And then Romemu acquired this beautiful building with this great kitchen. And so I started kind of nudging him to make use of the kitchen in order to feed the neighbors. And starting last October, we had our first meal. And we had about 8 volunteers from the Romemu community and a couple folks who are working with me. And we handed out 100 meals. We prepped and bagged and handed out 100 meals. And so since that time, we've increased to 150. Starting in January, we wetted the winter coat and clothing drive. And so 2 Sundays a month, folks can come and get food and clothing to take home and to be warm and nourished. And for me, this work is not work. It's an offering. When we see ourselves as separate, it's easy to think, oh, I have to take care of myself. I have to feed myself and my family and my people. When we can move beyond that and we have this experience of integration and inclusion, then there is no other. And we feed people and clothe people and sing with people and pray with people. And so that's what we're doing. And from the Benedictine tradition, they say work and prayer. And so there's not much distinction between the two. So we make these offerings a couple Sundays each month.
So beautiful, brother. And I'm also acknowledging also all of your other fellow Romemunians, Beverly and Marlena.
Katarina.
Exactly, and Rabbi Rivera, all of them who are enacting twice a month now this principle. We begin our Seder. Our journey to freedom begins with an opening. Right? So I thank you so much for that, brother. Thank you so much. So we sing this song, Hala Achmania, whose words you'll find on the screen in front of you, which means this is the lechem oni, this is the poor bread. It's poor because, on one level, it's poor because it was the bread that we ate in Egypt, according to many commentators. And when people are poor, they eat a bread like this that they can fill their belly up with a little bit and put the rest of it away. It's also lechem she'onim alav davar harbe. It's the bread that opens into a story. You ask a story about it. And it's also poor in the sense that it's humble, say the rabbis. Like bread is a little bit egoic. It's a little bit inflated. It's brioche and a croissant. And lechem oni, this matzah, is a little bit more like, I'm just a matzah, but I work and I pray. I'm keeping it simple. So what do you think about that, Chazan Schechter? Halachmania?
Halachmania, Yachalu, Alaksana, Tehara, Timitzrayim, Tehara, Timitzrayim, Kol Pinye Seheyechol, Kol Itzreche Seheyechsach, Hashata,
השתעבדי לשנה הבאה בני חורין.
What's in the question? Our sages teach that the word wisdom, chokhmah, Sophia, wisdom, chokhmah is made up of two words, koach ma, the power of ma. What is it? What is it? And who asked the best questions? Not only do they know where to look to find their presence, but the Seder's story begins with Vigata levincha. Not just you tell them, but they tell you what their questions are and what our questions are. Ma, what is it? The power of, not just like Ma, what is it, but the power of Ma, what is it? And so we have some kids. We're going to do a little manishtana for us. What's up? What's different?
And we're so excited to invite Hazel. She was she came in last year, totally so brave to bring her manishtana last year. And now she brings it again, but with a flower in her hair. What could be better?
Okay, Hazel, ready?
There you go. You're unmuted. Okay. Manishana halayla haze mikol halaylot mikol halaylot shebehol halaylot anu ochlin hametzu matzah hametzu matzah halayla haze kulo matzah halayla haze kulo matzah shebechol halelot anu ochlin she'ayerakot halayla haze maror halayla haze maror shebechol halelot ein anu mapilin afilu pam echad halayla haze Shettefe amim halayla haze Shettefe amim shebechol halot anu ochlin ben yoshvinu vein misubin halayla haze kulanu mesubin halayla haze kulanu mesubin.
Amazing. That was incredible. That was so good, Hazel. Everybody, let's all do this.
Amazing.
So good.
Hey, that was beautiful, Hazel.
You awakened my curiosity.
Oh, you really did, and I loved every piece of that. Kvelling, you know what that is, Hazel? Kvelling, it means that there's a place in my heart that's warm, thinking that you know these songs and that you inspired all of us, really. And I know that Lisa also, I have to say, she's also. Oh, yummy. Wow, questions. And there's the way that you sang it, Hazel, is so beautiful. And the way that I grew up hearing it was very much like that. But the way that my father grew up hearing that same song, He grew up hearing it in a different language entirely, not Hebrew, but sounds like Hebrew a little bit. And it's called Yiddish. And in Yiddish, the vier kashjes, the four questions, have a completely different valence. And they're also beautiful, just like you, Hazelin, just as the way you did it. So Chazan Shechter is going to sing the vier kashjes, the four questions in Yiddish.
At leben, will de pflegen, de vier kashes. Man ist dann Halela der Mikol Alelos. Was ist die Nacht von Pesach anders von allen Nacht von der ganzen Jahr? Die erste Kasche ist alle Nacht von der ganzen Jahr, essen wir kommen zum Matzah. Aber die Nacht von Pesach, essen wir nur Matzah. Die zweite Kasche ist alle Nacht von der ganzen Jahr. Essen wir alle Grinsen, aber die Nacht von Pesach essen wir nur bittere Grinsen. Die dritte Kasche ist alle Nacht von der ganzen Jahr essen wir aus. Sei sitzen dick und sei angelegt, aber die Nacht von Pesach essen wir nur. Oh, tucken wir nicht einmal, aber die Nacht von Pesach tucken wir zweimal. Einmal Karpas und Salzwasser, einmal Mara und Karpas. Alle Nacht von der ganzen Jahr essen wir sei sitzen dick und sei angelegt. Oh, wer die Nacht von Pesach essen wir nur, sei angelegt. Kadesh, du hast ein Teretz für mir, ein Teretz für mir. And not only in Yiddish, but we have our Seekers program. We have a whole kids program that sings and learns these prayers. And it's a tradition. It's the way our generations, from generation to generation, continuity, learns these songs and brings these prayers and brings these songs to our Seders. So we're going to share with you a little bit of our Seekers right now. And the tech might not be perfect, but it's going to be perfect because the kids are perfect.
Tena halayla haze mikol halelot שבכל הלילות אנו אוכלים חמץ ומצה הלילה הזה שבכל הלילות אין אנו מתפללים אפילו פעם אחת הלילה הזה שתק ועמים הלילה הזה שתק ועמים מה נשתנה הלילה הזה מכל הלילות שבכל הלילות אנו אוהבים ונשתינו ונמסובים
so amazing to see all the kids. And now we have to understand that there are different styles of children asking questions. Rabbi Dayan, please, could you elucidate what the contemporary situation is with children asking questions?
Absolutely. That was just amazing. I'm still kind of awestruck. So this is my interpretation of the 4 children. And we're starting with the wise child, 12 years old. This is the first year I feel like I know exactly what's going on at the Seder. I've been going to Hebrew school for a while, and my bar mitzvah is coming up. I've studied this holiday year after year. Why we eat maror, why we dip a spring vegetable in salt water, why we eat matzah, the 4 questions, the 4 children. I love the Seder. I especially love knowing what's going on. My cousins are here at the Seder, but they don't go to Hebrew school. They don't have a clue. Even though I'm not the youngest, I'm going to recite the four questions because I'm the only one who knows Hebrew. My cousins say I'm a show-off, but I don't care. I'm proud, and I know my parents are proud of me too. I turn to them and the other adults in the room, and I ask the one thing about the Seder that I don't really understand. Why do we open the door for Elijah when we really know he's not coming, not tonight and not ever? The alienated teenager, 15 years old. I just don't feel like dipping this green curly stuff in salt water. I mean, come on, people. This salty water is not really tears. That's just silly. And all you people are so comfortable. You know nothing about slavery. You never did, and you never will. So stop pretending. You say you want to tell your people's story, but you don't even know one another's story. I mean, not each other's real story. You certainly don't know my story. You never listened to me. You just want me to do what you think I need to, so I will fit into your community. But your people, they're not my people. Your values, they're not my values. I mean, what does this have to do with me after all? It's all about you. You just want me to do it because you want me to be like you. The only promise I'm dreaming of is leaving this house in a few years, leaving this family, making my own way in the world, a way that has nothing to do with you. I don't want your freedom or redemption because being part of this family feels like slavery. The innocent child, 5 years old. Wow, we're having a really big dinner tonight. There's so many people here at once. My parents, my grandparents, my uncles, my cousins, my aunts. It reminds me of Thanksgiving, but it's not Thanksgiving. It's really different. I try to call my mother to explain things to me. Ma, what is going on here? But she can't hear me. There's too much going on. She's too busy. People are dipping and crunching and singing and eating and saying things. I can't understand what they're saying. I think they're speaking in a secret language. I want to know the words. I want to know what's going on. They're leaving me out. I don't want to be left out. Finally, I stand up and I yell at the top of my lungs, Ma, what is going on here? Finally, the child who cannot speak, the shy child, 8 years old. There are so many people here. We put together 3 long tables in the living room because the tiny room wasn't even big enough for all of us. I'm at the very end of the table with all the kids. My parents are at the other end. They're at the head of the table. I can hardly see my parents over the heads of the other adults. Everyone is so loud. They're talking at the same time. I'm the youngest. They keep telling me to do things, to say blessings, to dip things and other things, to read the 4 questions out loud for everyone. But I don't want to. I don't like talking around people I don't know. I'm scared. I refuse. I sit there not saying a word. My parents look confused, upset. I know they want me to show off for them, but I don't care. I won't talk. My favorite uncle finally says, look here. Tonight is all about a story. And here's how the story goes. Just listen. You don't have to say a word. And he starts the story telling me how once upon a time there was a Pharaoh, and Pharaoh did not like the Hebrews. He made them slaves, made them work hard all the time, no recess, no breaks. And one day, this man named Moses came to save the Hebrews. And just like me, my uncle told me, he's afraid to talk in front of people, in front of large groups. And he stuttered a lot, but he did because he wanted to save his people, because he knew God was on his side. So those are the 4 children. We're going to go into breakout groups now for about 4 or 5 minutes. What I want you to share is how would you parent each one of these children? And when we get back, you're just going to put a couple of words into the chat. So how would you parent? Choose one child, and how would you parent them?
שבכל הלילות אנו אוכלים שאר ירקות, שאר ירקות. הלילה הזה מרור. הלילה הזה מרור, מרור. שבכל הלילות אין אנו מפילים אפילו פעם אחת, אפילו פעם אחת. הלילה הזה שתי פעמים. הלילה הזה שתי פעמים. שבכל הלילות אנו אוכלים בין יושבים ובין מסופים, בין יושבים ובין מסופים. הלילה הזה כולנו מסובין. הלילה הזה כולנו מסובין. הלילה הזה כולנו מסובין. הלילה הזה כולנו מסובין. מה נשתנה הלילה הזה מכל הלילות, מכל הלילות? שבכל הלילות אנו אוכלים חמץ ומצה, חמץ ומצה. הלילה הזה כולו מצה. הלילה הזה כולו מצה. שבכל הלילות אנו אוכלים שאר ירקות, שאר ירקות. הלילה הזה מרור. הלילה הזה מרור, מרור. שבכל הלילות אין אנו מפילים אפילו פעם אחת,
Okay, I think everybody's back. So if you can put some quick thoughts into the chat, and I'll read a few of them. Go on with our Seder. I like this one. Happy birthday, Rabbi David, and unconditional love. Beautiful. Any thoughts about parenting these children? There were some great thoughts in my group about the compassion with which to approach the alienated child. Oh, well.
Okay.
Okay. Freedom from convention, listening deeply to each one. Thank you, Sharon. I like that. Teenage years equals finding their own identity. We did an expansive version. In other words, we played Jewish geography. Nice. Taking time to listen. It's hard for grown-ups. It is hard. Giving space for each child to be who they are, and patience. Jeffrey, we're surprisingly unable to come up with a complete theory of child rearing in 3 minutes. That's amazing. That's just really disappointing. You don't have to say anything unless you want to. Yes, that's good. Making each child feel like they are the center. The rabbis say, love him more. Okay, I'm going to turn it back to you, Rabbi David. Thank you, everybody.
So friends, you know that the word parent, horeh, and the word Torah are very connected. That in so many ways, the greatest and most important thing that the Torah wants us to remember is that the children of the next generation are the living legacy of the values and the heart of the tradition. The centerpiece of the Haggadah is v'higadeta lebincha, that you'll make your children into Haggadot. Make your children into the lasting legacy of the stories that you want to bring into the world. You know, only 6 years ago in the United States, there were something like 35,000 museums, and only one was dedicated to slavery, to African American slavery. And that's changed over the last 6 years, but not tremendously. And when we were down in Montgomery this past year, I went down with the rabbis for human rights. We sat with a woman named April. She's a remarkable woman, and sat with Reverend Eleanor Harrison Bregman and Rabbi Rivera. And we sat and we listened to her telling a story about how each year she has a Seder down in Montgomery. And that the Seder, she gave us the book. And it dawned on me at that moment that each and every Seder has been a museum that has transmitted the legacy to our people and to the world of what it is to be enslaved, to know degradation, to know indignities, and to know also how we rise from them. And that is the beginning of our story. Our children ask us, what's different tonight? And we tell them it's different tonight because tonight we're going to tell a story that might not seem to comport with how you feel tonight in California and in New York and in Great Neck and in and Nevada and wherever you are. But believe it or not, in our bodies too is the legacy of slavery, as it is in the bodies of our brothers and sisters around the world. And so we start by acknowledging that, and we say, Avadim Hayinu. We were once slaves, Chazan Shechter.
Avadim hayinu, avadim hayinu, tata b'lechori b'lechori, avadim hayinu, ata b'lechori, avadim hayinu, ata b'lechori.
Avadim ayinu lefar b'Mitzrayim. We were slaves. And how did that slavery come about? We started off in the upper echelons, and slowly, imperceptibly, moment by moment, freedoms were taken from us. Imperceptibly, moment by moment, the shifting sands of what was normal receded. And before we knew it, within a few generations, we had become habituated to what it would be like to be someone without those rights and those and those freedoms. We might even lose the freedom to vote, or the freedom to drink water when we're online, or we might lose the freedoms from our own bodies. We might lose the freedom. But friends, in the story of our people in the land of constriction, the land of Egypt, there was a strong sentiment that we're not supposed to. The greatest thing that we could do is it will stop giving birth to children, will stop fortifying life. But there were midwives named Shifra and Pua, and there were also other women who the Midrash says that when the men were tired from the field of backbreaking labor and said, why should we have children? Why should we bring a next generation into a world like this? The women awakened them and said, life, we know life in our bones. We know life in our bodies. We know that from great pain, life will come again. And those women are called, in the language of the rabbis, Nashim Tzidkaniot. These were the women who stood up to the patriarchy. They stood up to the peril. They stood up to the poisoned impotency and said, yes, we can, and yes, we will. They were imbued with the power of, yes, she, yes, he, she can. Vihi. This prayer that Chazan Shechter is going to talk to a little bit now, her brilliant insight into this beautiful prayer.
The song is Vihi She'amda. We all know it. Vihi She'amda, Vihi She'amda, Lavotenu V'lanu, Vihi She'amda, Vihi She'amda, and she, Vihi means she, She'amda, that stood, Lavotenu, who stood against Lavotenu, our patriarchies. So the story, the Passover story, is there's very few, you can't see the women inside the Haggadah. They're not there. And inside the Haggadah, this is the code to show that these are the hidden heroines of the entire Haggadah. He she'amda lavotenu v'lanu. These are the women. She stood up to our patriarchs. Shifra and Pua stood up to Pharaoh. Yocheved stood up to the decree. Miriam stood up to the decree. Pharaoh's daughter stood up against her father. And they all gathered together separately, but against the entire system of oppression. And so this prayer that we sing right now is against the systems of oppression, but in honor of all the heroines, the feminine energy, the power of women to liberate us, to bring us through the narrows, to bring life through the narrows. And we sing Hi She'amda. Hi She'amda, Hi She'amda, Lavotenu V'lanu. Hi She'amda, she stood up to the patriarchs for all of us. Shelo echad bilvad, amar aleinu lechalotenu, ela shebechol dor vador, amdim aleinu lechalotenu, ve'hakadosh baruch hu, matzilenu miyadam. Alana Klugman is now going to share with us her beautiful tribute to these women.
Miriam, my daughter, who first opened my womb and turned me into a mother, I named you for the sea I had not yet seen, my dream revealing who daughter of the well, she who draws out the bitter, she who parts the sea. Urchatz, blessed is she, sang Shifra and Puah, as I pushed and parted the curtain between us and first gazed into the wells of your eyes. On the banks of the river, I taught you to take comfort from the egret and heron lifting above our constriction, where to find soothing herbs of chamomile and aloe, to listen to our mother Nile, who daily reminded us between the confines of two shores is the ever-changing flow that cannot be enslaved. We bathed with Hebrew and Egyptian women, even sometimes Pharaoh's daughters, taking off our clothing of slavery, washing away edicts and divisions, our long hair and limbs weaving into one another like luminous baskets. You, with a child's gift for seeing, reminded us that God could be an ark of love, formed from mud and reed. Unlike your brother, you did not require a staff that turns to a snake, plagues of darkness, and the death of the firstborn. You brought the tools of the midwives, the practice of listening, of waiting, of finding a way through, even when any passage seemed impossible. You who saved your brother and your people from drowning. We anointed and blessed you at your first bleeding while still slaves in Egypt. We spread oil of frankincense and myrrh over your brown skin, wove henna through your hair, naming you as midwife, keeper of the well, prophet of the poem and dance. I was there by your side, my daughter, as we crossed and you remembered Pharaoh's daughter and our sisters of the river. When the sea drowned the men of Egypt, you sang a song of grief for their fallen sons and husbands, you of the heart larger than any one people or sea.
Thank you for your beautiful words and your beautiful poetry that weaves the power of all these women that were the unseen, the hidden heroines of the liberation story. Thank you.
So we know this story. We know this story and we know what took place. And so we're going to move now into the plagues. And we're going to skip with the thing that we're going to do next, Elisa Rivka. And we're going to move into the plagues because we know the story in this sense. And it's the story also in general. It's every story. It's when social ills and personal ills fester long enough, then eventually they come back as suffering. As the great Carl Jung said, what we don't work through as karma in us becomes met in the world as fate. And we point outside and say it's plagues. But really the story is a story of recalcitrant power. Power that was unbending and unyielding. Power that was craven. Power that knew the great cost of continuing along the path that Pharaoh took, even after dire warnings. And we hear our own story. We hear a story of a country that on January 6th experienced something the likes of which no one could ever really have imagined or hoped would ever take place. We saw the writings, but it was a continued assault on credulity and sanity. And it became a plague on all of us. And so here we are in the aftermath of that. And we take it upon ourselves to say that we too will wake up about various things in our lives without the need for 10 plagues, without the need for these kinds of pattern interruptions that come from the cosmos, as it were. So we might see it soon enough and do what needs to be done for the sake of ourselves, our families, and the planet. Right? This is the Eser Makot, These are the 10 plagues. And as you know, you take a cup of wine and you're going to take a little finger, as we say the plagues, you'll take a little bit of that wine out of the cup or the grape juice and spill it out as a signal of our diminished, right? We're not so happy about it, right? And there's also something else to be said about it. But first, let's sing, and then Chazan Shakti will take us in a moment. But make sure that you spill the wine onto a little napkin or someplace, a little napkin, okay, something. I'm going to put it onto a little...
I'll show you. You can spot me for a second. I'll show you a good way to do it. So this is my napkin here, and I'm going to spill out we use pinkies, but I can't get the pinky into my wine glass particularly, but here like this. Dam Svardeya Kinim Arov Dever Shchin Barad Arbe Choshech Umakas Bechoros, and an acrostic Tetzach Adash Be'achav. And now for all of those who were able to put their wine splots onto their napkins, let's go into gallery view for a second. And because we're going to use the after effects of these wine splots. And if it's just me, then I'll hold it up. And we're going to use these. And David has it up too. David has it up too. Let's also, whoever has it, let's all, can we share all those who have it up? Everybody.
I love it. Michelle Horvath. You're the Virgo. Look at that. I love it.
You're the Virgo. Oh my gosh. So what we have here is this is an opportunity to read a Rorschach wine splot blessing.
I love it.
So I want all of us who are to find someone's wine splots and to read your own blessing, a blessing into a pattern that you're seeing on the screen that feels like it's a tuning fork. It's something that is resonating for you. You read your own, interpret your own, free associate your own blessing based on these wine splots. Use somebody else's.
All right, so we all have to hold them up so others can see it. And then you want it, Chazan Shakti, do you want them to interpret them or give them a blessing just to themselves, or do they want them to write it, or what were you?
Well, we've done it like in Do It and Dyads last year, but maybe if someone, let's invite one or two people to just maybe send a blessing to everyone based on someone's wine spot. Like if there's anybody, raise your hand.
Let's take one or two. And if someone wants to offer a blessing.
Okay, Dolly. Unmute.
May everybody see all the blessings that spring gives us this year.
Amen.
Amen.
Abby.
Amen. David, do one.
Yeah, Abby. Go ahead, Abby. Abby Rosen.
May we all become whole and conscious so that we don't need to bring plagues on ourselves in order to awaken.
Amen.
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 I'm seeing the circularity to Carol Foreman's wine splots. So I see that but they're turning into a spiral. So I see that there's a growth that moves round and round. There's a coming around and round, but there's also a deepening and a spiraling and a widening. Let's see. I see a footprint in Abby Rosen's, and I see grounding. I'm sending everyone a blessing for grounding on your feet, for every single toe to really touch the ground and feel the nature in the earth. Rabbi David, could you maybe read a few spots?
Sure. I think I see a lot of, look at that. I see a couple of people with this kind of linearity, but also with something that breaks out of it. So I think Ryan is laughing at himself. I see it's very linear. I bless you, though that there's kind of that which stays outside of the line too, which is really wonderful. So here's to Seder on a night of Seder, but a little bit of breaking the mold too for you. And I think also, I'm just gonna see a couple of these here. Michelle, may you continue to be like the of service and to be able to respond with such coherence in your life in such a beautiful way to hear what needs to be done so that you can respond to it. And Kim, I just want to bless you, Kim. It all might look a little bit messy right now, but order is on the way. I promise, on the way, because you're in between. You're in between things. You just started something new, and it's all going to be right. And it's a holy time of furtive creativity for you. It's going to be good things, new beginnings for you. We could go on and on. I feel like I'm back reading charts for people. I love it. I love it. So
Coffee grounds.
we're gonna go into from the plagues, everybody. From the plagues, we recognize, right, that it's much better, as Chazan Schechter, Ilana Klugman said this. It's so much better for Miriam's approach to be the transformative approach as opposed to the way of plagues, right? We have those two paths here before us. And one way to make a change is to begin to notice so much of what we've been given, right? So much of what we've been given. And so I'm gonna bring us into Dayenu now because we need to move into gratitude. Okay, Chazan Schechter. We have a lot to be thankful for, especially in light of the plague this past year.
Ilu ilu hotzianu mi Mitzrayim hotzianu mi Mitzrayim Dayenu Velo asavahem shefatim Dayenu 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 Ilu natan lanu et hashabat velo kerbanu lefnei harsiyai Dayenu 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 Dayenu
Ilu nosan lanu es haTorah v'lo chnisanu l'Eretz Yisrael Dayenu. Ilu chnisanu l'Eretz Yisrael v'lo vanu lo beita b'chira Dayenu. Next slide. Ilu.
I think this might have been an abridged version. Dayenu.
No,
There it is. Sorry.
The same one. Dayenu.
It's the next one.
Dayenu. 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 Dayenu.
Dayenu 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 I was going to try to find the last one.
So then we say, it would have been enough, everyone? Really? It would have been enough. We realize this year how much would have been enough. It would have been enough to just be able to say that all of our family has enough food to eat. Okay, Dayenu. Would have been enough to know that everybody is safe. Dayenu, right? And it wasn't for many of us. But those of us who are here, we could say that we're at some level, we say, Dayenu, thank you for just being here in this moment, right? For having access to healthcare, to having access to vaccinations, all of those things that we can be grateful for. We know that there's a lot of stuff that needs to be fixed in the world. But in this moment to say, thank you, right? Thank you that we have shelter. Thank you for all of these ways that we can engage. Thank you to Zoom, right? Would have been enough to have Zoom, but not only we have Zoom, but we also have a Zoom Haggadah. Dayenu. 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 Oi, friends, you know what? At this moment, as we appreciate the story of liberation from degradation to dignity, from despair to delight, we call upon the remarkable Carol Foreman to lead us in a moment of hallel, of gratituding and praising and raising.
Hallelujah, 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 Adonai. Hallelujah, 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 Adonai. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah.
So when Moses went down to Egypt and he said to Pharaoh, "Hey Pharaoh, let my people go." This hallelujah that you just sang, it reminds me of a YouTube I saw years ago, where there was a amazing African American preacher who was speaking to African American spirituals. And he told the crowd, he said, "You know, friends, did you know that every single African American spiritual can be played on the black keys on the pentatonic scale?" And he went on to show that each one of their spirituals could be played, each one of those spirituals could be played on the pentatonic scale on the black keys. And then he went on to talk about Amazing Grace, this this anthem of tshuva, of transformation, of seeing the light, and how the ship's owner, the story behind Amazing Grace, of course, is that the ship's owner saw the light. He was a slave trader, and he repented. But that the song that his lyrics are set to in Congress, it says the lyrics are by, right, the author of the song is by that man, but the melody is unknown. And this preacher went on to say, "I would love, when I go to heaven one day, I want to meet Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob," he said, "but I really want to meet a slave named Unknown." Because he knew that music came from the deep depths, right? That deep hallelujah, that deep sense of we shall overcome, we shall persevere, which is such a powerful thing to remember on Passover evening, that together we can overcome. And if we have leaders who are willing to face pharaohs and say, "Let my people go," all of our people, then we'll be okay. So maybe everybody, we can sing from our own place. With Chazan Shechter, we'll sing a little, when Moses went down to Egypt land, he said, "Let my people go."
And you know what? I really feel like I would love to have Carol back to do the choruses. Let's share the let's share the slide. I'll do the verses. Nice. and Carol, you do the choruses. Let's put the words on, so Carol, you'll know what this is when it comes on.
Oh yeah.
I would love to hear your voice again. Oh, it's such a beautiful. It really has that spirit. I'll start it, and then you'll come back in for the chorus. Go down, Moses, way down in Egypt land. Tell, oh, Pharaoh, let my people go.
When Israel was in Egypt's land, let my people go. Oppressed so hard they could not stand, let my people go.
Go down, Moses, way down Egypt's land. Tell, oh, Pharaoh, let my people go.
So God said, "Go down, Moses, way down in Egypt land." Tell old Pharaoh to let my people go.
Go down, Moses, way down in Egypt land. Hello, Pharaoh, let my people go.
Yes, the Lord said, go down, Moses, way down in Egypt land. Tell old Pharaoh, you let my people go.
Carol, bring us. Thus spoke the Lord, man. You have to speak the Lord, man.
Thus spoke the Lord, bold Moses, let my people go. If not, I'll smite your firstborn sons, let my people go. Go down, everybody, Moses, way down in Egypt's land. Tell old Pharaoh to let my people go.
Woo. All right, friends, we're about to embark on the three important rituals that we'll talk about in a moment. But first, I think we need a little bit of some dance, little dance of liberation. We have an amazing dance teacher in Costa Rica. Her name is Eliza Rivka. I call her Costa Rivka. And she's going to lead us in a little dance of liberation right now for a couple of minutes just to get up and stretch. This is called the seventh part of the 15-step stretch. So we're going to stretch a little bit and do a little liberation, okay? Take us away, Costa Rica.
Chag Sameach, everyone. So as we start to leave the narrow place, right, as we're hungry and maybe achy from sitting and feeling all kinds of things in our body, we remember that when the seas part, the only thing to do is sing and dance. And so at this moment, as we start to liberate ourselves and see the meal at the end of the tunnel, we can lift our spirits a little bit and remember the liberation that comes in expression. So wherever you are in your mind and body, wherever you are in the world, this is an invitation to find the places in your body of freedom. So even if it's just moving your spine, even if it's just tapping your toes, let the music move through you like water, and we'll start to bring some aliveness, some life force into our bodies together.
Dancing with their timbrels followed Miriam as she sang her song. Sing a song to the one who we've exalted. Miriam and the children danced and danced the whole night long. Miriam was a weaver of unique variety. The tapestry she wove was one which sang her history. With every thread and every strand she crafted her delight. A woman touched with spirit, she dances towards the light. And the children dancing with their timbrels followed Miriam as she sang her song. Sing a song to the one who we've exalted. Miriam and the children danced and danced the whole night long. Miriam stood upon the shore and gazed across the sea. The wonder of this miracle she soon came to believe. Whoever thought the sea would part with an outstretched hand, and we would pass to freedom, march to the promised land. And the children dancing with their timbrels followed Miriam as she sang her song. Sing a song to the one who we've exalted. Miriam and the children danced and danced the whole night long. Miriam the prophet took the timbrel in her hand, and all the children followed her just as she had planned.
Miriam raised her voice in song, she sang with praise and might. We've just lived through a miracle, we're gonna dance tonight. And the children dancing with their timbrels followed Miriam as she sang a song. Sing a song to the one who we've exalted. Miriam and the children danced and danced the whole night long. And the children dancing with their timbrels followed Miriam as she sang her song. Sing a song to the one who we've exalted. Miriam and the children danced and danced the whole night long.
Beautiful. It's a yofi. Mamash, beautiful. That was a dance to bring us through to see the meal at the end of the tunnel. Very well said, Costa Rivka. Thank you, Eliza Rivka. So beautiful. Friends, we're going to move into the three most important parts of the Seder, which are recognizing Pesach, matzah, and maror. These three symbols, the Paschal offering, and the symbol of the Paschal offering is the zera'ah, is the shank bone, and some people use a beet if you're a vegan, and all kinds of symbols. But what it really means is this is important because it represents the possibility of liberation. When the Buddha came along and the Buddha said that life is full of suffering, but there is a path, the beginning of the Fourfold Truths and the Eight Noble Path, this is our version. We say that even though there's slavery, if you're willing to sacrifice something that you're afraid of, meaning bring it close to you and then overcome it, and pass through the lintel and the door frame, which becomes the womb, that all birth, right, is a beginning. So this Paschal offering is about that moment, and then the matzah, which we'll talk about, and then the maror. These are the three stages, essentially freedom, and then simplicity and bitterness, and being able to metabolize bitterness and make it sweet. So we have a little something that has to do with a lamb. It's not nearly as heavy as what I just said, but it's kind of fun. So we're going to do it. Chazan Shechter, what we got? Has the interviewee entered the building yet?
I'm trying to find our interview.
Maybe the interviewee is
I found it.
there.
I think it is. I think my interviewee is coming. Oh, here he is.
He's there?
Yeah.
Oh. Wow. This is remarkable. Friends, coming to you all the way from Egypt, some over 2 millennia ago. We didn't think we were on the phone with his agent. It wasn't sure. It was a last minute thing. And we knew somebody who knew somebody, and here he is. I'm so happy to have you, Mr. The Lamb. The Lamb, so good to see you, Lamb.
Thank you so much for having me over dinner and giving me this opportunity to share with you my story. It's great to be a guest. I've really had a fun 3 days banging and clomping around and hanging out with the Hebrews. And tomorrow, it's the big dinner.
Tomorrow's the big dinner. Wait a second. We're so happy to have you here, but maybe you didn't get this part. They invited you to the dinner, but I don't think they invited you for dinner. I think you are dinner.
What? What? Me? No. That can't be right. I'm a god. I'm Aries, the first astrological sign in the zodiac, spanning the first 30 degrees of celestial longitude.
Well, I know what that feels like as an Aries, but I think you're missing the whole point here. According to the Egyptians, you're a god, but we need to execute you and introduce the one and only real, unseeable Hashem God. And my friend, you may think you're a god, but you're not it.
I'm not feeling very well. I think I have to lie down. I just can't believe that I'm not a god. My whole life I've been worshipped. My lush, soft, beautiful white curls. I've been so taboo for eating. That's all I've never known. I'm a god, and now that you're telling me that I'm not, who am I? I don't know what to do with my life.
Well, my friend, that's the beginning. But let me say something. You don't really have to worry about that for very much longer.
What? What do you mean?
Well, you only have an hour and 20 minutes left to live.
An hour and 20 minutes?
Not to alarm you, but they're about to smear your blood on the doorpost over there to ward off this angel of death. And then they'll roast your innards for supper. It's a whole delicacy. Ooh, sorry.
What? That's barbaric. I need you to call PETA. I will tell the Egyptians the truth. I've always suspected that I'm a sham of a lamb. I'll let them know. They'll recover. Just give me a few more days.
It's not just them. It's we, the Hebrews. We're still attached to the lambs. We're the ones who needed to slaughter the thing that we worshipped. To purge ourselves of the idols we held onto through our suffering in order to turn and embrace the God of our salvation. You symbolize our gratitude for safety after all the blood and other plagues, but there is more work to be done.
Oh, yes, that's intense spiritual work. In my meditation class, we've been studying about impermanence, and that's an oddly permanent way to actually learn about it. If I was to speak from my higher artistic self, I say I was like a poet, I could see this all as a beautiful metaphor for transition and as a representation for everything people need to sacrifice in order to experience true liberation. But why me? What about your iPhones? What about your enslavement to money and to Bitcoins? I've seen you all worship those things, and way worse than this poor bleeding lamb before you.
Listen, Lamb, listen. I hear you. Those things are all really important. And that's true. Renewal and all kinds of New Age Judaism, they're going to make it all into a metaphor. It's true. It's so true. But at this particular moment, you are uniquely poised for this ritual, representing all the false gods and the ways that all false gods can steer people wrong.
I guess you're right. I'm an example of what people can give up. Freedom requires self-awareness and a willingness to change, and freedom requires sacrifice. I'm wondering if people out there, all of you in your squares, if you have things that you can give up or sacrifice this coming year, if there's something that's holding you back from your own vulnerability and intimacy with the divine and others and yourself, what is standing in your way of real, true liberation this year? And if there is, why don't you bring that part of yourself to this part of the Seder? Don't worry, that part of you will not be sacrificed. Take that knife, cut yourself free. I think we're done.
I want to laugh, but I also want to say Amen. What wisdom from the Lamb. Don't silence that lamb. That's a good voice. So friends, let's raise our hands, and we're going to wash our hands, Yachatz. And as we get ready to eat matzah, everybody, we're going to make a blessing, the blessing of Al Netilat Yadayim, with these hands that have now also said earlier that we needed help, and we got help. We got help from the beautiful Haggadah. We got help from Hazel. We got help from all the children. We received help from the words of our ancestors that remind us that no matter where things are in our lives, how bad it is, or even how good it is, that there's important diligence that we have to have. We got help from the story of Ilana and the story of Miriam and Vahisha Amda. We got help. We have help, and we have the help of Dayenu, of the power of gratitude itself, the power of gratitude. Thankfulness and gratitude is an attitude of the enlightened heart and mind. We had the hallelujah of Carol, hallelujah of the Adonai. Praise are all of those who are servants of love. And we also had the power of going down and saying, let my people go. We had all of that together. And so we lift up our hands. We say, it's true we needed help, but we can make a blessing now on that which came before. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al netilat yadayim.
Amen.
And we take their matzah. Motzi matzah.
Oops, I forgot. Kadesh, Urchatz, Karpas, Yachatz, Maggid, breakout, matzah.
So everybody, you take up this matzah, which is, right? This is the bread of affliction. This is the bread that our ancestors ate. It's a bread of simplicity. It's a bread of power. It's a bread of sharing. It's a bread of urgency, of not rushing, of not waiting. This is we can't wait. We got to go. When you got to go, as my son said yesterday. Hold it up, everybody. Here's to the liberation in this moment, tomorrow, in the coming days, that we can say it can't wait any longer. It can't wait any longer. The urgency, it can't wait any longer. We eat this matzah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al achilat matzah. Rabbi Kohler says, love to hear your voice on maror, on the bitter herb.
So last night we actually had a small in-person Seder with about 10 people, which felt like such an amazing privilege. And when we bit into the maror, the horseradish, I realized I bought turnip by accident. But luckily we had Gold's hot horseradish. So we got our dose of maror, and maror is so extraordinary because it really puts you at in the experience of the Israelite slaves. It's written that the Egyptians embittered their lives by yimareru et chayehem ba'avodah kasha, with hard work. So this is our opportunity to really taste what they felt, right? To really taste it. So I'm going to take a teaspoon of Gold's hot horseradish and say the bracha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al achilat maror.
Amen. Kadesh, Urchatz, Karpas, Yachatz, Maggid, breakout, matzah. It's getting all stuck in there. Oops, correct.
I think we missed.
Sorry. We got a sandwich coming.
No, I think we missed the bracha over the wine, over the Hallel, by the way. The Al Yisrael bracha. If you have a glass of wine with you, for the second cup of wine should have been a toast to the Dayenu. But it's not too late. You can lift it up and say, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei pri hagafen.
Amen. Amen. Ein mukdam u'muchar b'seder.
So we're going to eat something now, everybody. Notwithstanding that our chazan is about to choke, we're going to hold on to it. And we're going to make a little, you know what I did? I doubled up on my maror. I put maror instead of charoses. People don't know charoses is the sweetening. Hamtakas adinim. So here we're going to make this little sandwich here. Hey, friends who are wondering about Christological things, and how Judaism's theology and Christianity, and we say, oh, that's not Jewish, it's Christian, so on, these kinds of things. There are a lot of differences between the different traditions, but one of them that's remarkable here is that we, as Rabbi Koleresis wrote in her very, very beautiful essay on eating freedom, eating liberation, that was in the Passover Companion, we're metabolizing, we're not just telling the story, meaning it's not just what's coming out of our mouths, but we're eating the story. We're putting the story inside of us. And it very much speaks to this notion that the word Haggadah, which literally means to tell, or it's a folk tale, is also related to the word in Hebrew for veins. There's something about bringing this into a cellular level, and there's a metabolizing, and there's almost like this incarnational theory, like our Christian brothers and sisters say that, as it were, God becomes flesh or God becomes a body. And here we're not saying the same thing, obviously, but it's the same idea here that in some way the soma, the body here, is inhabiting, like, what does it taste? What does bitterness taste like? And the lesson of maror also is that it becomes sweet after a while. That's why, according to the Talmud, the primary maror is not bitter. It's not horseradish, even though that's what I grew up with. It's romaine lettuce, because apparently romaine lettuce, at least the romaine lettuce that was in the time of the Talmud, was eaten and it was quite bitter. But after one ate it, it sweetened. It became sweet over time, and it's kind of a reminder of that. And the same thing here, that the sandwich that Hillel used to make, the original roast beef sandwich, right? They used to take matzah, put some roast beef, or meaning the Paschal offering, and then they would put horseradish on it, or some version of that, and he would tie them together into some kind of liberation sandwich story. It has like freedom, suffering. It's got everything mixed in, all in one, right? All of your nutrients for transmitting the story of degradation to dignity. So here, this is to Beit Hillel. This is the sandwich that Beit Hillel or Hillel used to eat. He used to bring them all together. The Kayem Mashin Emar, Al Matzot, Mirorim Yochluhu. May all beings be free. May all beings be liberated. And may all beings sing a song of liberation. And so to the greatest question ever asked at any Seder, which is, when do we eat?
They tried to kill us, we survived, let's eat.
Exactly. So we can eat. And the eating here is on your own. So we're gonna turn off our cameras. You can more than welcome to stay. We're gonna finish the Seder after we have a 45-minute, 30 to 40 minute. I'll come back and check in. I'm gonna go eat a little bit. If people want to stay here and text with one another or schmooze, we can also leave open the. We can unmute people if they want to talk to one another, but that can also, I think that's okay. And if people want to, we'll come back in, let's say 10:10, and we'll go from there. Does that make sense? Okay.
I'll sing us out with one more. To Shulchan Aruch.
Good.
Kadesh, Urchatz, Karpas, Yachatz, Maggid, matzah, maror, korech, shulchan orech. Bon appetit.